Welcome to the Jackson Rudolph podcast. I am your host, Jackson Rudolph, and this is episode 55. And we have a friend of the show, world champion Sammy Smith, back on today. Sammy has more Jackson Rudolph podcast appearances than anybody else. But that's because Sammy's always got great, exciting stuff to talk about. We've done a film study together. We've gone over Sammy's life story. And now, today, we're primarily going to be talking about a new program called Sport Karate University that Sammy came to me and we teamed up to create. It is officially available at blackbeltmag.com. Head on over to the shopping part of the Black Belt Magazine website, and you can check out Sport Karate University. 5 unique programs. We've got 4 major programs and a minor program. We're going to be diving into all of the details about Sport Karate University today. But first and foremost, for anybody that somehow hasn't seen Sammy on the Black Belt page before or on the podcast before, if you guys are watching on YouTube, Sammy, just go ahead, reintroduce yourself a little bit. Tell us where you're from and how martial arts got going for you.
Yeah, well, as always, Jackson, thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, this is like my 5th time, for the 5th time, I believe, but always a good time being on the show. And thanks for a great intro, as always. If you guys don't know me by now, I'm on Team Paul Mitchell, world champion from Long Island, New York, 7-time Diamond Ring winner, 2-time ISKA winner. I've been competing locally since 2002 and on NASCA since 2004. So I've, been in the game for a very long time, but I'm super excited to talk about, this great new, venture Jackson and I have together. So really excited to talk about it.
Absolutely, and I am too. And by the way, Sammy's being humble. 7 diamond rings is like second most all time to like Caitlin Michelle, I think, maybe tied with one of the fighters. White. Anyway, I got to check my history on there. That's the cool thing about diamonds, though. If you guys want to know who's won all the diamond rings, you can just head on over to the Diamond Nationals website, and they have it all listed there. And if you're a point fighting fan, we also ran an article in Black Belt on the website a few months ago about the fighters, the point fighters that have won the most diamond rings. You guys can check that out as well. Little plug for the Black Belt website. But anyway, now we're going to go ahead and dive into talking about Sport Karate University. But as we do that, I want to provide a little bit of context, and we'll start with you, Sammy, just about your background getting started in sport karate, because it's something that obviously isn't offered at every martial arts school, but it's something that can be offered at any martial arts school, regardless of style, right? So tell us your story. How did you get introduced to sport karate? Was that something that you were fortunate enough that in your original school, that was something they offered, or did you have to do some digging to discover the world of sport karate?
Right. So when I started at Busto's Martial Arts, and it's a Kempo school, originally a Japanese, Chinese Kempo style school. And I started there September 10th, 2001. And, my story is that I was hooked on karate ever since that day. But Shion John Busto, who was the owner of the school, I think he just kind of had that feeling that I was kind of like one in a million students. And he invited me to become part of the competition team in 2002. So that was like only 1 year after I started karate. And I believe I was a half orange belt, and I was the youngest, and I was like the lowest rank belt to be on the competition team. And this competition team already existed before they even, stepped foot in the school. They would go to local tournaments. They would do, the open forms, weapons, self-defense, and demo team. But yeah, that already existed, but I was fortunate enough to be invited onto that competition team so young. And I picked up the nunchucks. I was one of the youngest people to pick up the nunchucks. I remember there was these 2 brothers. They would make little PVC nunchucks. It was like a little PVC pipe from like Home Depot with like a little string, and they would two brothers would make the chucks and give them to us. So my first weapons were kind of like makeshift weapons, but anyway, I was just in the competition team from such a young age and getting exposed to at the time what you thought was the best, because that was just a local circuit, and that's kind of like all when you're just starting out. You don't know that there's this like amazing open circuit kind of in the background at this point, like waiting for you. But there was this one girl, and I'm not sure how she actually got introduced to the NASCA circuit, but she had gone to the 2003 US Open. And that was the one where, the Taylor Lautner video with the blue hair. I'm sure, like, if you know, you're gonna know what I'm talking about. So she got the DVD and handed it to my parents, and we watched it together. And I saw Taylor Lautner, I saw Matt Emigan, Daniel Sterling, and all these people who I had no idea about right then and there, but like little did I know like what's in my future. Like later on, I'm gonna meet them and train with them. But yeah, that was kind of like my introduction to sport karate. And at that point, I don't even know if it was. I didn't know what sport karate was. I just thought it was like some acrobatic mixed martial arts. Like there was no name for it, I guess. Like I should say, like I didn't know what it was called. But yeah, as soon as I started watching that video, honestly, I can't really remember what happened after, but I do remember like I started working on more tricks by myself, and my parents really wanted me to go and experience one of those NASCA tournaments. Now that we kind of know what they are, and the following year at the 2004 U.S. Open, that was my first NASCA event, and I haven't been stopping since. So it's been a very long time of me competing on the NASCA circuit, but that was kind of my introduction to sport karate right there.
Mm-hmm. And I think that I have a somewhat similar story in how kind of fortunate we were to be exposed to what we would come to know as sport karate in our original schools. And this is one thing that I always tell students about, is that I've never told a student to leave their original school to study sport karate, but you can study sport karate in addition to the traditional program that you're receiving, which is exactly what happened to me, right? So I was training at a traditional World Taekwondo Federation Taekwondo school back in Kentucky. And one day they purchased the XMA program, which, in the early 2000s, that was the way that schools brought in sport karate to be able to share that with the whole school through a curriculum, Mike Chat's program. And so I actually learned Bo through the Mike Chat XMA program, learning from people like Taylor Lautner and Nassandra Kissel and that whole group of XMA athletes, right? So that's actually where I got my start in learning sport karate, was inside that traditional Taekwondo school. But what was interesting is that they didn't really support tournaments. We did like 2 regional tournaments a year. One that was an inter-school tournament with the other schools in that franchise. And then one that was technically an open tournament, but it was effectively just an inter-school tournament because of how many people were there. Up in Carbondale, Illinois is where that happened. So, my early tournament experience was just these like tiny little, like basically inter-school or small regional tournaments. And it wasn't until going to the tournament in Carbondale, there was one competitor that was competing on a circuit called RSKC, the regional sport karate circuit, which was it still is a popular circuit down in the southeastern United States. And that's where I got introduced to a larger open circuit competing on RSKC, which is now owned by Marty Eubanks. And then from RSKC's like premier event was the Bluegrass Nationals. And so the Bluegrass Nationals obviously was an NASCA tournament as well. And that's how, I got introduced to high level professional competitive sport karate. But like, I had to get so lucky for that to happen. You know what I'm saying? It was, starting off with my school happened to purchase the XMA program. So I learned some creative, musical, and extreme stuff. Then there just happens to be this one other competitor at this small, practically inter-school tournament that introduces me to this slightly bigger circuit. And then I get introduced to like the big leagues, right? And so the beautiful thing about Sport Karate University is that now we have an opportunity to share sport karate with students of any background. And that's what I was saying earlier about not all schools teach sport karate, but all schools could teach sport karate, because a lot of what sport karate is, and I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, because I have seen some confusion recently on recent Black Belt Magazine posts and things of that nature about what is sport karate. That's not karate, that's kung fu, or that's not karate, that's this, or whatever. But sport karate does not strictly mean that it is only karate, Japanese karate, done for sport or done for competition. Sport karate is simply an umbrella term, kind of like how, the layman would say karate, but they really mean all of martial arts, right? So sport karate is an umbrella term for all areas of competitive martial arts, competitive open martial arts. So that includes point fighting, that includes forms or weapons, breaking divisions, even sometimes self-defense divisions, team demonstration, team synchronized performances. all of those events and divisions are covered by the umbrella term of sport karate. Really, the only genre of martial arts competition that isn't covered by the term sport karate is anything full contact, right? Kickboxing, MMA, all of that stuff kind of exists outside of sport karate. Sport karate is point fighting, and then all of the performance stuff is basically the best way to define it. And so the reason that I say that any school can teach it is because regardless of background, Sammy, you had a Kempo background. I had a Taekwondo background. I know a lot of people that have traditional karate backgrounds and things of that nature. There's even a few competitors that have like ninjutsu backgrounds, right? So regardless of what martial arts style you come from, or if you're a school owner, what martial arts style you teach, sport karate is kind of this blend, and Sammy said it, it's kind of a mixed martial arts, more so for performance plus point fight, right? We adopt a lot of the best things from various styles. Just one brief example before we dive into talking about Sport Karate University. A lot of Japanese styles teach the higher hand chambered position up higher on the rib cage. A lot of Korean styles teach the chamber position down much lower on the hip. So the punches kind of rise up to the target, where a lot of the Japanese punches come on more of a straight line, right? Well, for sport karate competition, because lines and everything are so important when you're going from like a chop into a punch combination, the higher chamber was adopted as like the standard in sport karate. But that doesn't mean that a Taekwondo artist that may have learned chamber on the hip can't make that adjustment. You see what I'm saying? And so it's truly, and that's just one small example of the many different ways that sport karate is a hybrid of a bunch of different arts kind of working together. And that's why anybody from any style, from any background can train and learn sport karate. So that was a gigantic segue to get to my next question for you, Sammy, which was, so now Sport Karate University is a thing. Now truly anybody from any style can get on the internet and learn the basics of sport karate. And even, through our programs, get up to some pretty high level stuff as well. It's not like you're just going to be learning chop punches and things of that nature. I mean, the courses go all the way through advanced tricking techniques, bow, nunchuck tricks. I mean, there is a ton of high level content in there as well, maybe for somebody that already competes and wants to step up their game. So Sammy, I just want to give you an opportunity to just give us the highlights, kind of just give us the overview of what Sport Karate University is and maybe what some of your favorite features are of the program.
Yeah, wow, Jackson, you've pretty much explained it yourself. But yeah, let me give you guys even more of a breakdown of what Sport Karate University is. So it's an online program, it's the first ever CMX sport karate, based curriculum on the internet. And we are, as Jackson mentioned, there's an open forms major, nunchuck major, bow, and tricking major. And then there's a performance minor. If you guys purchase the bundle, you guys are going to get everything. Or you guys, if you just want to purchase the nunchuck program, you can do that too. Or, the performance minor, you can do that as well. But in the nunchucks, in the open form, and in the tricking, that's taught by me. We start off, super basic, as if you never, stepped foot on a mat before. This is your introduction to karate, sport karate, from the very basics. But we also want to make sure that not only are we, targeting people who have never done sport karate, but also existing people who do know what sport karate is, and making sure that everybody, no matter what level they are at, are getting something. Okay, so that's why we started the very basic. We work our way up, as Jackson said, all the way to super advanced movements that Jackson and I are doing in our forums current day. So I think that's really cool how it's like a college-like experience. That's that's why we call it a university, and you can earn these majors, and you're building your foundations and you're working your way through the curriculum, through the major, to get to that mastery level. And I think it's super cool. There's nothing like it, out there right now. And it was so awesome to just put a vision, and make it come to life. And then when we talk about the performance minor, that's actually something that's super important to me, because you could have a really clean performance, but if you don't sell it, it's not going to be believable. You're not going to get those stylistic points. You're not going to be memorable, and you want to be memorable. So in the performance minor, we talk about, we also talk about basics, but we also talk about tips and tricks, behind the scenes things that you don't just hear, all the time. We also dive into synchronized forms and doing tricks, how you can do the same trick but make it look different, and hitting different angles, and also, doing tricks off of your partner, which has become very popular in NASCA and in the synchronized division. And we do touch, on that in the performance minor. So I think it's just a great overall program that you can really become the best athlete by just diving into the curriculum.
Absolutely. And a couple of things that I want to just kind of add to there, Sammy. You mentioned the fact that we try to give a college experience, and that is true all the way down to the way that the lectures are organized. And that's right, we do organize the classes as lectures. So you'll notice, let's say that you were going to purchase the bow staff major, for example, just because that's the one that I know the most intimately. Once you purchase the bow staff major and you enter, you'll receive an email and you'll enter the student portal that way. And then once you're in the course and kind of going through the work, you'll notice that within the bow staff major, it's assembled into various different courses that you have to take in order to graduate. And within each of those courses, there are lectures that you have to complete. And the lectures are what contains the content. You learn from the lectures all the way down. I mean, we tried to get on all of the little details here with the way that this is set up. I just heard from our creative team late last week that all of the diplomas are ready as well. So when you finish Sport Karate University, and this is exciting for anybody that has already purchased the program and is diving into that content, when you finish Sport Karate University, there will be a downloadable diploma that you can download and put up on social media or print off and frame it, put it up on your wall. And there's some exclusive artwork for the diploma for anybody that does the complete program. So if you do the bundle, meaning that you complete the bow, nunchucks, the performance minor, the tricking, and the open forms major, you complete all 5 of our programs, you'll actually receive a special diploma that has a unique kind of limited edition artwork on it that's different from just the regular diploma. So little detail thing there, but I think that's pretty cool, and I was excited about it. So you guys should be excited about it too. But then talking about the actual content, I think, Sammy, you put it beautifully by saying, it's something that if somebody's never done much sport karate or even martial arts before and they just need to understand the foundation, those first couple of lectures across every course will allow someone to do that. And then moving on up into the competitors that are trying to step their game up and already have a solid foundation in sport karate, all of the signature moves, your nunchuck releases and my bow releases and your tricking techniques, a lot of those signature moves are covered in the curriculum. And then in addition to just the level of content, also the flexibility of it. A lot of programs that you might see for various other elements of martial arts are timed programs where you have to do X and then Y and then do Z, and it rolls out over a certain period of time. One of the great things about Sport Karate University is once you purchase the online course, it's yours. If you want to start at lecture 1 and go straight through, that's great. That's the way that we recommend to do it. But if you feel like, all this stuff in the first couple of lectures, I feel pretty good on, I'm going to skip to the hard stuff. Let's see what the hard stuff is. You can do that as well. We don't necessarily recommend that, but you have that freedom and you have that flexibility where you can choose what you want to work on at any given time. And that's really beneficial, especially for like within the weapons majors, where maybe I want to learn how to do my body rolls before my releases with my bow staff, or I want to learn my releases before my body rolls. It doesn't really matter which one comes first, but you can select which of those courses you take first. So by and large, our recommendation is always going to be to go in the order that they are listed on the site. However, there is the flexibility that if you wanted to jump around and do different courses on different days, that would be completely okay, because we give you the freedom to do that. And so now that we've talked about some of the major highlights, and we're going to dive deeper into what some of the content means, especially in that performance minor, Sammy. But I want to start by just taking this all the way back, because Sport Karate University actually has a pretty fascinating origin story that kind of culminated in you giving me a phone call when I was still on Stanford campus and being like, hey, I've got an idea. And then we made it happen, right? So what led up to that phone call that you gave me to make Sport Karate University? Because I know there's quite the history that led up to that phone call.
Yeah, it's crazy looking at like the end product and then kind of thinking about like how far this has actually come, which is like really crazy. Nobody on this stream is going to know, but I had this idea back in October of 2019. So this was way before, unfortunately with the pandemic, happening. This was way before that, this was when there were Skype lessons happening, and even some Zoom, I guess. Zoom, even wasn't really popular until like really now, but there was still some online coaching going on. But the amount of online, content that we have today is a lot greater than was back in the day. But that's not to say anything. Sport Credit University is still super unique in its own way, though it is an online program, but it still stands out from the rest. But just at this point, there wasn't a lot of online content at the time. I am the type of person that likes to keep thinking of all these, different ideas and how I can innovate, things, especially in the sport that I love so much. And I was at the time, I actually was living in New Jersey, because I was doing some training over there, and I was sitting in my apartment, and I started thinking about like what I can do, and I was just writing all these different ideas, and like something came to me, because back in the day, I want to say it was 2005. Again, this is kind of like history at this point if you're new to the sport there, but there used to be a camp called the All-Star Camp, and it was a competition college camp. So in theory, it's kind of along similar lines where you would take a class, let's just say with Matt, because he taught there, and then you would have that at like 12 p.m. and it would be like 12 p.m. to maybe like 12:45. And then after that, you can go to a comma class with Vince Johnson and do that for 45 minutes to an hour. And then after you're done with that, you can go to a class with Daniel, or you can go to a class with Joey Greenhall, which is kind of everything that I just did when I used to go to that camp. But it was a super unique camp. There was activities to do after the camp was done. That's kind of besides the point, but it was just a great overall experience. And it was taught like you were doing college classes. You had one and you went to the next and you went to the next until your day was done. And then you got up and you repeated it the next day. So I started thinking about how I loved that camp so much. It was a very, well-run camp. And I was wondering how I can do that kind of online, because I wanted to, I think like, sport karate competitors should, know about something like this, because I really got a lot out of that camp. And so I started thinking, oh, like maybe we can, like I can teach on like, it could be like a weekend thing, like once a month on a weekend, like I can teach and then Jackson can teach. And then, if we get other people involved, they can go and they could teach after. So I had this idea, but it wasn't polished yet. And I remember being like so anxious, and I sent Jackson text messages like, hey, I have a great idea. Like, can I call you at some point and like let you know what this idea is? Like, I really think it would be great to work with each other on this, because you and I have such a great relationship. We've known each other for such a long time, teammates, and now we're co-founders of a, great program. But, back then, still had a great relationship. So you were the first person who I, told this about. And later that day, I actually also reached out to my cousin, because he's doing great in, his world. He's not a martial artist, but he has a lot of inside scoop in businesses and kind of online trending ideas. So I thought that he would also be a super helpful person to ask about. We were on the phone for an hour and he gave me all these, great ideas on what I can do online. And that was kind of like the first prototype that I had in my head. Obviously, if you guys know what Sport Credit University is, it's not like that now. There's, we're not doing something on the weekends. This is an actual program that you can access at 5 o'clock in the morning. If you're like the early bird training, you can get on that program right there. There are video modules that you can see at any point. It's not like a specific time, which I also think is pretty cool and unique. But anyway, that was like the first prototype. And then, Jackson and I spent a lot of time on the phone discussing, how we can give you guys more and, have access to it every single day, not just once a month, because we want you guys to have the most content. And funny story is Jackson and I, we were actually going to do this by ourselves at one point too. I remember we were talking about like what camera we should get. No, we should use the iPhone. No, we should get this camera. Not sure yet. Yeah, I even made some shirts on the web, on some website, and I had prototype shirts, and I was so excited. Like there was a moment in time, guys, that Jackson and I were going to do this by ourselves. But, you know, lucky enough, Jackson has such a great relationship with people at Century and Black Belt Magazine that he was actually able to work it out that we could come together and Black Belt Magazine can actually help us with this, you know, great program, which I'm so thankful for because they did such an amazing job. Definitely much better than our iPhone, you know, quality camera that we were going to use in the beginning. But yeah, very grateful for how far, you know, Black Belt Magazine took this program. We spent like more than that, like meetings, you know, hours and hours, just like throwing different ideas around, and again, how we can bring the most and best content to you guys. So, you know, like I said, now it's a totally different product than, you know, what it was in the beginning, but so much better, so much more involved. And like I said, you're in what Jackson said, you're still getting that university feel. You're still taking all these classes. There's still lectures that are building on each other. Just like, you know, when you're in school, you don't learn like addition and then the next day you learn like division and multiplication. Like there's steps to this, right? So you're not going to go from a chop punch to like double backflip, you know, it's going to follow like, you know, a certain pattern. So you know, it's such a cool product, and I really hope that everybody who has already purchased it is enjoying it, but I really hope that everyone can, you know, dive into it and really, really, really enjoy this product.
And I really want to stress to the audience how close we were to this being a filmed on iPhone. Sammy and I purchased our own domain name and website. Like we were this close. We were like maybe a phone call or two away from that being the way that Sport Karate University happened. My side of the story is that I was still at Stanford. Obviously, this was before, as Sammy mentioned, the COVID-19 pandemic and anything. So I was on Stanford campus, and I think that I hadn't really finalized all of the details of me moving to Oklahoma City and working as an independent contractor with Black Belt Magazine and Century at the time. We were just kind of in the early stages of those talks. And, you know, as coronavirus started to become more serious, and ultimately as we moved on into the following year, into 2020, that's when kind of everybody was forced to leave Stanford campus. And I had to move off campus before I graduated, and never got my graduation ceremony or anything like so many other college students had to deal with. Sammy, I think you were impacted by that as well, if I'm not mistaken. And so, you know, it's a very, a lot of transition going on during that time. And it just so happened that, you know, when Sammy gave me the call was kind of when the Black Belt Magazine position that I was coming into kind of took its form. And that's when the light bulb went off for me. I was like, wait a minute. We have literally the martial arts industry's best media company right here, and we can use them and we can work with them to create this product. And so that was it was really special for me, and it was a blessing for me to be able to make those two avenues come together, to be able to present a product like this that will help generations learn sport karate. I mean, this is a product that will live on the internet forever. It's something that people can access, you know, as long as things continue. And by the way, you might notice that right now it's just forms and weapons, the only weapons being the bow and the nunchucks, right? Obviously, there's more avenues within sport karate that we could expand to. But if you guys want to see those expansions, buy the programs that are there right now. If the programs that are there right now blow it out of the water, then that's what gives us the ability to increase the program and add more weapons and add just more elements and more instructors and things of that nature to what we're doing here at Sport Karate University. So if you guys want to see additional content, if you want to see additional instructors featured, things of that nature, then go ahead and support the product. Or, you know, if you're somewhat interested in tricking, but maybe you really want to learn sword one day from Sport Karate University, go ahead and buy that tricking major, and that will get us one step closer to being able to expand in the future. So if you guys want to see more, support what we've got right now, and we will use that support to continue growing and making Sport Karate University better and better. And speaking of better and better, one of the things that I think that sets this program apart from really any other method of training within sport karate, even within private lesson training, one thing that often gets forgotten is the value of performance. And when we talk about the performance minor, we kind of use the term performance in two different definitions. The first definition is the obvious definition of performance, which is how well do you present your routine. So we talk about the introduction, we talk about where you should key eye, how you should key eye, the pacing of routines, right? So that's one aspect of performance that we talk about, is how you actually present your form to an audience, to the judges. But then we also talk about performance in terms of how are you going to optimize your performance? How well will you actually perform when you step into the mat? We talk about strategy, some of the strategies that I use when determining what releases are actually going to go into my weapons form based off of my competition and what they do. I dive into that strategy in the program. Sammy talks about what you should be doing on tournament day to make sure that you're ready to compete. Sammy's also a certified nutritionist. She writes articles for the Black Belt Magazine website about nutrition for sport karate athletes and martial artists in general. So I highly encourage you guys keep checking those out. The support on her articles so far has been crazy. We hope that you guys keep supporting those articles. And thank you, Sammy, for providing those articles. But Sammy even dives into like the things that you should be eating on tournament day and things of that nature. So literally both sides of performance get discussed within the performance minor. As Sammy mentioned earlier, we also have synchronized tips and tricks in there as kind of a little bonus for anybody that wants to do team performances. And so the performance minor is something that Sammy and I are both really, really excited about within this program. It also comes at a reduced price compared to all of the majors. It's a minor, so you can get the performance minor for a little bit cheaper than the major program. So just go ahead and throw that in your shopping cart and pick that up too. Sammy, anything else that you want to add about the performance minor?
Well, actually, the really cool part, what you'll actually see me with a bow staff in my hands, which, you know, if you know me, usually I have a pair of nunchucks in my hands, but I have a bow staff in my hand, and we, Jackson and I talk about, you know, not only team sync in forms, but also team sync in weapons, and how, you know, you can use your partner with your weapon, getting into different spots in the ring, or, you know, going into different releases. And so I think that's super cool. Not only are you getting form synchronization, but you're also getting a weapons portion too. And, you know, kind of like what Jackson just said and what I said before, there's also a part of you using your partner to do tricks. And, you know, I already kind of touched upon that, but I think when I watched that US Open DVD, there was one team sync, team, and they were the first to, you know, do cartwheels with each other, to kind of cartwheel on the person's leg and then cartwheel off. I'm not really exactly sure how to explain this. You guys got to see this for yourself, but it's actually one of the movements. I'll give you guys, you know, a little bit of an insider that I'm teaching you guys how to do, and it's such a cool illusion move, and it's so awesome. And, you know, like what Jackson said, this is a great program at a reduced price. So I really hope you guys take advantage of this. You know, we have, not only are you guys, you know, just purchasing the program, but you're purchasing our knowledge. I've been competing for, you know, I don't know, I've been doing karate since 2001. I've been competing since 2004. So you guys are not just like, you're not just learning what we have to offer. You're actually learning and, you know, getting all our background knowledge, all that years of experience. And, you know, that's just something that you guys should take advantage of.
And it's something that we're certainly blessed and honored to be able to share with the world through this platform. But now, instead of talking just so specifically about Sport Karate University and all the things that we think are so awesome about it, right? I think that people can find that out for themselves when they go and purchase the program, as we hope that you guys do. But now I want to just go ahead and shift more generally and speak about why sport karate is important. So Sammy, just kind of a personal anecdote from you, I guess, about, you know, maybe you're somebody that's watching the podcast right now and you haven't done much sport karate. You were on the Black Belt Magazine page and you decided to tune in today, and you come from some traditional martial art and you never thought about trying this performance martial arts or trying sport karate. What would you say is the number one reason that someone should do sport karate? Or in other words, what has sport karate done for you? How has it changed your life?
Right. So first of all, before I, you know, dive into this question, I just want to say that I respect all the styles, because I know some people are very passionate about their traditional martial arts, and then they kind of see this up and coming different style, and, you know, they might be a little bit weary about it at first. But I just want to say that I respect all the traditional styles. You know, that's the foundation of martial arts. And, even when we practice sport karate, we still like to bring in the traditional aspects of it. It's not like we completely change, the things that we do and say that, some traditional aspect is wrong. That's not the case at all. We honor the traditional aspects of karate, and we just try to make it a little bit more performance based, a little bit more, eye catching with all the jumps and the spins and the twists and the flips that, sport karate has to offer. So I just wanted to say that first before I kind of, dive more into the question. But sport karate has really changed my life. I think, if you're a little kid, you're going to be more drawn to like the spinning and kicking flips rather than, a front kick. And, there's nothing wrong with a front kick, but we want to see a little bit more jumps, a little bit more spins, a little bit more action, especially because little kids are so used to like, I guess now they're not used to like Ninja Turtles and like Power Rangers, back in the day, that's what, I could relate myself to. But, a lot of kids like superheroes, and, sport karate is kind of like you can become your own superhero by, learning all these like fancy spins with your weapon or fancy tricks in the air. But, just spending time and competing in sport karate, it just has given me so many cool opportunities. I'm able to do commercials. I'm able, people are able to work in the stunt industry. You can go so many different aspects from sport karate. I love to compete. I love anything extreme. So it's always cool, when you're at school to be able to throw a flip or throw a kick. Everyone's always amazed by it. So, you kind of get a little cool points when you know how to do some sport karate stuff. But yeah, sport karate has just, I've developed so many great relationships, with not only with my coaches, Matt Emig and Daniel Sterling, who have really brought me insight into just like not only being a great competitor, but being a great person. And, when you're a martial artist, you live the martial artist lifestyle. So, but when you're a sport karate martial artist, it kind of just gives you just a little bit of an edge. You're just a little bit cooler. But yeah, it's brought me so many great relationships between my coaches, between my friends, between my teammates, and you're kind of just living this lifestyle, and you have to be in it to kind of fully understand it. But it's definitely a lifestyle that I'm super proud to be a part of.
And to look at the kind of a different perspective on what you're saying about, having some cool points because you're a sport karate athlete, right? For any of our more experienced audience that's watching this, or older audience, maybe you guys are instructors and maybe school owners, things of that nature. One of the great things about sport karate is that when you learn it yourself, which by the way, to learn sport karate, you don't have to be able to do the corks and double backflips. I have never gone upside down a moment in my life. And if I did go upside down, I would have fallen on my head when I did so, right? So you don't have to be able to do those things to practice sport karate. You could specialize in a weapon. You could focus on the hand combinations. But what's important for instructors is that if you have a basic understanding of sport karate, that's something that you can introduce into your school in small doses. And it is a proven retention tool because kids love it. Like Sammy was saying, kids learn sport karate moves. They realize that those are the same moves that the superheroes are doing in Marvel movies, because guess where they get those superhero stunt doubles? From sport karate competition, right? A large percentage of the stunt doubles that you see in Hollywood today, and now working in Atlanta and Toronto and all the major hubs for stunt work, a lot of them got their start in sport karate. Your Taylor Lautners of the world, and your Caitlin DeShells of the world, and your Matt Emigs and your Ross Constams, and the list goes on and on and on, of all these former sport karate athletes that are now award-winning in many cases, stuntmen and women that are making waves in Hollywood as well. And then one additional, just kind of to give my personal anecdote about sport karate, one additional factor that people don't often consider is because it's so easy to see how people go from sport karate to movies or sport karate to stunts and things of that nature. But I'm taking sport karate and I'm going to medical school. I've been very fortunate and very blessed to be accepted to medical school. There's still some things to be decided within that process. So I'm not going to announce anything officially yet about where I'm going or anything like that. However, I will be attending medical school this coming year. I have a Bachelor of Science from Stanford University in human biology, with a concentration in the brain and disease, or neurology and oncology, however you want to put it, because that's what I want to do as a physician, is I want to practice neurosurgery. And people ask, well, how do you go from a lifetime of doing karate to now you want to go to med school? Like, where's the connection there? But in reality, both have always been a passion for me. And I preach all the time. I hear so many of these motivational speakers be like, find your passion, follow your passion, pick your passion and go for it. And I'm like, no, you can have two. Two passions is okay. I've lived my entire life with two passions, right? I have my passion for martial arts and I have my passion for medicine and the pursuit of a career in medicine. And honestly, I would not have the opportunities that I have had if it was not for sport karate. What I always tell people, because I get kids and parents that come to me all the time, say, Jackson, we want to go to Stanford or we want to go to an Ivy League school. How did you do it? How did you get in? And I say, well, it's three things, right? You got to have really good grades, great standardized test scores, all of that. That's a given, right? In addition to that, you've got to win the lottery because all of these schools have like a sub 4% acceptance rate or sub 5% acceptance rate. So even really, really qualified applicants sometimes don't get in or oftentimes don't get in just because of how selective these programs are. But then the third thing is have something that makes you different from every other applicant. And every single person watching this can find the thing that makes them different. And for me, that thing that made me different was sport karate. I've been very fortunate and very blessed in my career to take the proper steps and do the work necessary to put myself in a position where, I can be the best male weapons competitor on the planet for a period of time. And that's something that I'm extremely humbled by and in a position that I've been honored to hold. But having that experience and having that title, if you will, is something that afforded me the opportunity to go to Stanford. It's not just because I was smart and I got lucky. It was I was smart, I got lucky, and I had something else that helped me get even a little bit more lucky, if you will, right? Hard work always, or luck always rewards those who work the hardest. I firmly believe in that. And that's what sport karate can be for you. Maybe you don't want to go to medical school, but maybe you want to go to law school, or you want to do a master's program, or you want to go and be an astronaut, or you want to do one of these things that it's a very selective process to be able to enter that industry or enter that field. Oftentimes sport karate can be something that not only will give you the life skills and the perseverance that you need to get there, but will also give you the opportunities and the experiences that will make you a stronger applicant for those positions. And that's one of the ways that sport karate has really blessed me. And it can bless you in the same way as well. And I hope that everybody sees and takes advantage of that opportunity, whether it's for you because you're a young student that's watching this, maybe you're a parent, an instructor, or a role model that's going to be sharing this with some of those students or children, things of that nature. But to me, that's how sport karate has been as impactful as it has been for me. I'm getting on my soapbox there a little bit, so we'll go ahead and we'll transition on to another topic here. So Sammy, somebody does Sport Karate University, they graduate from their major program and they decide it's time for me to start competing. What do they need to go do? What is the success kit for getting going and actually going and competing at a tournament?
Okay, well, I wanted to add one other thing to the last part because I think it's super important. You definitely touched on it, and it kind of reminded me of something personal as well. In the sport karate world, you have to be, and this is not to scare anybody away, but if you want to be the top athlete, you got to really be on your game, like basically 24/7. You have to you want to train as perfect as possible because when you perform, you want to be as perfect as possible. If you have a slight little bobble, you might not win, so it's kind of training you to be perfect and training you to have that, no, it's not good enough mindset. I'm going to do it again and get it right. And for me, at least, that has kind of carried over into my schoolwork, kind of had, as you mentioned, and, just pretty much everyday daily activities. I want to be the best that I can. I have that perfectionist mindset. And I really think that it's because of, how perfect you have to be in this sport, how it kind of translates into, all my activities. And that's a good thing. Okay. It makes you, be the best person that you truly can be. So I just wanted to mention that too, because you kind of reminded me of, that, and I wanted to get it out there. As far as the next question with somebody graduates Sport Karate University and they're ready to compete, what they need to go ahead and do. Well, Sport Karate University teaches you, like I mentioned, the foundations. We also do learn some combinations. So if you guys don't know what a combination is, there are multiple movements, one right after the other, right after the other. And in the open forms major, I teach 3 open forms combos. And, you know, in the tricking, I do the same. And with chucks, I do the same with that. So not only are you guys learning single moves, but you guys are also learning combinations. Now, if you really wanted to, you can take all 3 of those combinations and tie them together, and you would theoretically have a routine, have a form that you could go and compete with. But as you go through the curriculum, you're actually going to learn how you can, you know, make your own combos. If you learned a chop punch in the first lecture and a spinning chop punch a few lectures later, well, you'll be able to piece together chop punch, spin chop punch. So not only will you learn the foundations, but you'll actually be able to start creating your own combinations by just learning the techniques through the curriculum. And then, like I mentioned, there are a few combos that you guys are more than welcome to take. And if you have an existing form, put them in your form. But if you never competed before, that would be a great step to incorporate some of the spins, some of the combinations that I'm teaching you guys. And also with the performance minor, you, like Jackson had mentioned, you get little tips and tricks what to do tournament day. So that kind of helps you have a little bit more knowledge going into a competition and what it's like. And, you know, we teach you how to walk in, we teach you where to properly place yourself in the ring, because spacing is also very important. So, you know, like, we're really preaching it as it is. You guys are gonna get the full package. You're gonna learn how to compete, how to perform, even, you know, the material itself. You're getting everything. So I honestly think that you'd be ready to step into the ring and compete literally after finishing the curriculum.
Absolutely. And I think that the combo building and the form building is a really important part of that, because obviously you need something to be able to go out there and be able to compete with. And the performance minor will give you some of the tools that you need to do in order to do that. And I also wanted to add, just for anybody that may be brand new to sport karate and like, well, how do I find these tournaments, things of that nature? Obviously, we're living in a really unique time right now where tournaments are happening every weekend over the internet, right? Sportmartialarts.com has some great events that they do. I believe they do those once a month or every other week. They do them very frequently, so you can check out what sportmartialarts.com does with their online events. NASCA has their own virtual tour. I highly recommend doing a few of the events or all of the events on the NASCA virtual tour. These are a little bit more expensive to participate in, but they're being sanctioned by the premier sport karate league of the world right now, which is NASCA, at least for forms and weapons competition. NASCA has been the standard of sport karate competition for over a decade now. So supporting what NASCA is doing with their virtual tour, I think is wise. So I think that it would be good to get your feet wet with maybe a couple of virtual tournaments, see how you place, see how you score. Sometimes you can even get some feedback from the judges depending on the competition format, which is always a good thing. And then after that, there are also some circuits that are starting to bring back some of the in-person tournaments. ProMac, which is a regional, or it's becoming a national circuit very, very quickly as they expand from the Southeast up into the Midwest and continuing to grow and grow and grow. But ProMac is an excellent league that you can compete in that is starting to host in-person events. They have COVID-19 policies in place, including social distancing and competing in sessions so that you don't exceed capacity for that state's regulations in a given room. They enforce mask wearing. So ProMac does a very good job with their COVID-19 policies. And that would be a good place to go and kind of compete for the first time, not only because they have tournaments happening right now when a lot of other leagues don't, but also because it's a good stepping stone to get up to some of the high level professional competitors that you would be facing in a NASCA or in a WACO competition. If you're somebody over in Europe, WACO would be your standard to compete in over there. But doing a tournament in a league like ProMac is a good opportunity to start to feel a higher level of competition, but not quite yet the highest level of competition. So that's a good way to kind of get yourself some more experience before you step up and go into the big leagues with the NASCA or WACO or things of that nature. And the last thing that I'll say about that is, and this is probably the best advice that I can give to a new competitor, compete against the best as soon as possible. Okay. There's no shame in losing, especially if you're losing to the best in the world, and you will learn so much by competing alongside some of the best in the world, especially when we have these NASCA tournaments back. A lot of people don't realize this. Anybody can show up and register for a NASCA tournament. anybody can come and compete against me as long as you're an 18 to 29-year-old male and you have a weapon in your hand. You can come compete against me. Same thing for Sammy on the female side, right? And a lot of people don't realize that you can do that. And we want you to do that, right? We want that competition, A, because it forces us to bring our game up, but B, because as a young competitor, as a new competitor, you can learn so much about the way that the best competitors prepare before they run a form. What types of strategies do they use around the ring? Do you notice how they adjust their form in given situations? And you can apply that to your own competition. And that can be a really, really powerful tool that I hope that everybody that has that opportunity uses. So there's a couple of tips on if you want to get started in sport karate competition and some of the things that Sammy and I recommend. Now we're going to go ahead and shift to kind of a similar question here, but I guess more of a things to look out for, Sammy. What is something that you now know about sport karate that you wish someone had told you years and years ago at the beginning of this whole journey?
Get used to doing a lot of endurance exercises. Yeah, so I mean that's kind of, I'm kind of joking, but I'm not at the same time. Sport karate really helps shape your lifestyle, and I kind of said that before about being a perfectionist, but like any devoted athlete, your lifestyle is going to change how serious you are to the sport. So if you're super serious about sport karate, you're gonna not only are you gonna study hours and hours and hours of videos, and use up a lot of computer space downloading videos and all that stuff, but you're gonna eat differently. Your sleeping pattern is going to be different. You won't have as much free time between schoolwork and practicing to do outside activities. Honestly, I know there are people who are in school doing tons of extracurricular activities, and that's great, but I really didn't have time for any of that because I was so devoted to martial arts. Like, it was literally like I came home, did my homework first, and then with the rest of the time, boom, I was training, and then I ate dinner, sleep, repeat. So that's kind of like what I was saying before, how it's a lifestyle. And I guess you're not really like thinking about that. Like when I was 4 years old, stepping into a karate mat, that's something that I didn't know. That's not something, that you would expect a 4-year-old to, be doing. But like, as you grow in the sport, your how you go about your lifestyle, what you do daily, all affects your training. And, you don't know till you're in it, but that, and I'm grateful for that. Like the way I carry myself is all because of sport karate. How I talk to other people is all about sport karate. They have taught me, not only martial arts has taught me a lot of valuable lessons, but just being in the sport karate world and developing friendships and friends. Like, who can say that they have a friend on the opposite side of the country, from a sport? Like, that's crazy. Like, you don't meet those type of people in your own state, obviously, or in your own school at home. So it definitely has given me a lot of different opportunities, and you just really don't know how far you're going to go until you're actually in it. So I would say that sport karate as a whole was very eye-opening, and I learned so much from it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And then one thing that I'll add, just kind of to directly get at what's one thing that you wish somebody had told you years ago that you now understand. For me, it is, I spent the vast majority, or I spent all of my career hating losing more than I loved winning. And so the focus was never on, glorifying the win or anything like that. It was just, I hated losing so much that I forced myself to win. And I'm very grateful that I looked at it that way, because ultimately it led me to accomplishments that I'm very blessed to have and to be proud of and whatever. But really the piece of advice that I wish I'd been given earlier was appreciate every opportunity to run a form, because when you put that much time and effort and energy and blood, sweat, and tears into something, the greatest product is what you do on the mat. The greatest product is not the numbers that 3 or 5 or 7 judges hold up in front of you. The greatest product is the performance that you put on. And one thing that my coach always told me that stuck with me is people don't remember who won. People remember the performance that was the most incredible, right? And so even though what led me to some of my accomplishments was hating losing more than I love winning, if I could go back and do it all again, I would appreciate every individual performance more. I would still hate losing more than I love winning, but I would appreciate every single performance more because of the gift that that performance is, the opportunity to do that performance, and because the performance is the product. The score, the trophy, the title, the accolade is not the product. The direct product of your hard work, of your labor, is the performance that you give the world when you go out on stage and you perform that routine that you've been training for months and months and months. So maybe that got a little bit heavy, but to me, that was like the biggest thing that in reflection now, since I haven't been able to compete, and it feels like forever because of COVID, in reflection now, that was the biggest thing, is I wanted to appreciate every form more because you don't know if you'll ever get that form again. Right. So maybe that got a little bit too deep, but that's the advice that I would go back and give a much younger version of myself. Last thing here, Sammy. Undoubtedly, you've been a leader in the industry for several years now, going from a top competitor to now being somebody that's a leader in the industry in terms of coaching, and now coming out with the Sport Karate University product. And you're doing this all as a female, which is awesome. And I think there's been a lot of great things happening really over the past decade to really highlight female athletes more within sport karate. And the reason, I'm not typically somebody that likes to be like, oh, look, like this is a girl doing something. I'm not like that at all, because I think that we're all created equal, and God all created us in his image. So I'm not the type of person to say that. But I do recognize when great things are happening for a sport, and in martial arts and sport karate specifically, we are a very, very, very male dominated industry. It's, we're looking at probably 85% male in many cases, right? And so whenever we have great female leaders that are inspiring other young girls to rise up and become these great female competitors like yourself, and role models and industry leaders like yourself, I think that's always a great thing. And like I said, sport karate has been doing things consistently over the past decade to continually support women that want to be great at sport karate and giving them a better platform. So Sammy, as one of those people who is creating that platform and inspiring young girls everywhere, what's your advice to young girls that are in martial arts and they want to do sport karate and maybe even want to be like Sammy Smith on stage as one of the best in the world one day?
Oh, well, thank you so much, Jackson. My advice would just to really be, don't think you're any different. Because as soon as you think you're any different, you already put yourself here. So you want to be at the same level. If not, you want to think, all right, I'm better. This might be a male dominated sport, but I'm going to take it further. And, I'm going to be the one who's recognized for doing this, this, and that. Like I'm not going to let, somebody else, take that spot. So I think and honestly, that's the way that I thought about it. Whenever I'm training in my head, I'm training that I'm competing against the boys, because, it's proven that, the males are stronger. They could jump a little bit higher because they have a little bit more force, and power off the ground. But that kind of, if you're thinking about, oh, I'm training, to beat the boys, which actually at one point, we talked about that in another podcast, how, when I was coming up, I was competing against the boys. So that's the mindset that I had to be at. So in a way, it was good. It forced me to, I'm going to use a term like keep up with them. But, I was just trying to be even better than them. Sometimes, I did beat the boys. So there you go. It works. And, a lot about sport karate is mindset right here. So, if you're female and don't feel discouraged if one, you have to compete against the boys, or two, you think that it's, male sport, because you have, these great leaders, like myself and a whole bunch of other awesome female martial artists that have paved the way before me and continue to keep paving the way. So all you got to think is that you're no different, or you're going to be even better, which, might be the better way to think about it. But yeah, that was my mindset, coming through, the game. You got to play the game and, just run with it. Never, this is going to sound a little cliche, but seriously, never give up. Don't get discouraged. Keep going. And have that girl power and own it and rock it, because, we can we can continue to change the sport, for the better. And it's awesome what the sport, lets everybody compete, doesn't discriminate. But yeah, female martial artists for the win.
Awesome. And I don't think that's cliche at all. I think that's a great message, and I couldn't agree more. And I think that any girls watching this, younger, older, competitor, not a competitor, new martial artist, old martial artist, doesn't matter. I think that's a great message, and words that you can certainly live by there from Sammy. So thank you for that. And that'll do it for today's show. So thank you to everybody that has tuned in. Thank you, Sammy, for being a guest once again on the Jackson Rudolph podcast. I will be putting a link in the description. I think that'll be above if you guys are on Facebook, and below if you guys are down on YouTube. So make sure that you click that link to check out all of the Sport Karate University products. Like I said earlier, we really, really appreciate any support, and the more support that you guys give us by purchasing the programs, the more that we're going to be able to do for the martial arts community in the future. So we really appreciate anybody that just takes the time to hit that link and look at the programs and just look at the descriptions and get an overview of what things are. We appreciate you just taking the time to do that, but we'd appreciate even more if you'd go ahead and get one of those programs. But anyway, thank you all so much for your support. Thank you to Black Belt Magazine for sponsoring the show. They've been an incredible partner both for the Jackson Rudolph podcast and obviously for Sport Karate University. And once again, thank you to all of our viewers tuning in. I'm Jackson Rudolph. This has been episode 55 of the Jackson Rudolph podcast, and I'll see you next time.